Hi, and welcome to another broadcast of Learning with Power. And my name is Scott Powers Houston, and this is episode 37. I haven't done one in a while because I've been overseas traveling, but I'm back. Yay! And so I wanted to do this one on what I want to call the Civil War. And I don't mean the one that we had in the 1860s, 160 years ago. I want to talk about the one that might happen in the future, because I was talking about the future before, and so I've seen, there's been movies recently about, having a civil war, and there's been talk about it, and I've heard people talking about it, and I've always retorted with, well, how would that look? I mean, would it be the rich versus the poor? Most people think that's kind of how it would be. The 99% versus the 1% with all their weapons. But, how would you've got rich and poor in every state, and how would the uniforms look like? How would you recognize a rich guy or a poor guy? A poor guy could wear rags and, a rich guy could wear rags and, but it seems to be going more along state lines now. And so the divide is happening even more and more and more deeply. And so you've got people who are all left, and you've got people who are all right. And there really is not many in between. And for those who are, they're not making a big enough difference, and nobody is listening to them, obviously. So so we have a big divide, and so now we have you have rich people in blue states that hate Trump and are very liberal, and you've got poor people in red states who hate the left, and so it seems to be going along state lines now. So I'm still not sure how it would happen. My guess is that California wants to secede from the Union, and they have a good reason to. California by themselves would be the fourth highest economy in the world if they were an independent country. They would actually have a little bit more GDP than even Indonesia. So they have a reason to actually, so it's not in their best interest to keep funding the government. If the government is going to do things like create war and things like that, and generally do things that California people don't want it to do. And if that happened, then I could see there's some kind of being a trigger there. But basically, you've got blue states versus red states. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen anytime soon. This is a long way off, but I don't see it swinging back again. With social media being as it is, people are just getting more and more and more buried inside their echo chambers. And people are just like, I'm okay, are you okay, you're okay, you're okay, yeah, I'm okay. And they're all agreeing with each other, and it's confirmation bias. And that's all anybody wants to talk about. The people that love Trump just want to talk about how vindicated they are, and the stock market's coming back at this point because basically the reason why is because all of the liberals have already sold off all their stocks. And so you've got Republicans now that are looking at this as a buy situation, because in March it was terrible worldwide. And so the markets now are starting to improve, actually significantly. I still think overall stocks are probably overvalued. I still buy them, but I think they're probably overvalued. But it's supply and demand. So as long as people want them, people will keep buying them, whether they're overvalued or not. It's hard to exactly assess overall whether they're too high or not. I think probably they are. And so the liberals think that Armageddon is still coming. And in fact, they want it to come. They want Armageddon to come. They want Armageddon to happen because that would vindicate their side. And if something like that does happen, that also could trigger maybe a civil war of some kind. Again, you know, I don't know. I think it would be along state lines, and I'm not exactly sure how that would look like. I'm not sure if it would necessarily create a war if California wanted to secede. I think I mean, you'd have a lot of, I mean, they could secede, and then the Northeast could maybe follow suit, and then Illinois as well. You've still got several what they call swing states, because you've got basically anywhere, especially in the Northeast or in the Rust Belt, where you have a lot of black people. They're liberal. That's going to make it very liberal. But in some places where there's a lot of black people, there's a lot of rich people, like in Detroit. So you've got a lot of poverty and a lot of black people who are angry and very liberal in Detroit or in Michigan. But you've also got, I mean, it's, you know, America makes three things. America makes, you know, we have Silicon Valley, we make weapons, and we make cars. And the car industry is being seriously challenged by the car industry, especially in China, actually, now. But we're not really allowing, like BID, for example, is probably more efficient than a Tesla. It's not as pretty as a Tesla, but it's more efficient. But we're not letting them into the country. So, but you still have a lot of really wealthy people in Michigan. And so those people are very conservative. And so that state is never going to be all one way or the other. It's always going to be divided. But there's not too many states like that. It's one of the few where it's always probably going to be a swing state. But mostly, you know, 46 states, let's say, are very decidedly one or the other. And so, that's how it's going to be. And I think that that the more and more we get divided, I think eventually, you know, there's got to be some kind of a limit to that. There's got to be, you know, somebody's going to start shooting. You know, I mean, you got a place where there's a lot of guns, and people are getting very angry, and more and more angry, and it's one side versus the other side. And I mean, there's got to be some kind of a there's going to be some kind of a standoff eventually. I mean, you know, that's not a situation that persists, you know, will persist forever. And it's not even interesting to hear people talk anymore, because I mean, even the Pope is decidedly liberal, and you know that. You know, and with a liberal person, you know what they're going to think. Any event that happens, you know what they think about it. Same with a conservative person. Any event that happens, you know what they think about it. You don't have to hear their opinion. They're happy to tell you their opinion. They want to tell you their opinion, but you don't need to hear it, because you already know what it's going to be. You already know what they're going to think about it. It's, you know, it's not a surprise, and there's very few people that are in between. And so I would say that there's very few voices of reason. I mean, people don't care what I say. I try to be in the middle, because people don't want to hear that. They just want to hear confirmation bias. They want to hear their own side. If I was one left or all right, I would be a lot more popular, because everybody would want to see what I'm saying as confirming what they already think, or what they already want to think. So I think that the only way it's going to go is that there's eventually going to be let's say a fuse lighting a fire. All right, the other thing I want to say is I think that overall Trump was a mistake. I was indifferent about him being president to begin with, but now I want to say that he was a mistake. Mainly because he's kind of gone rogue, a little bit like Putin. His first term in office, he was actually pretty good. He was actually a successful presidency. And then Biden was a disaster. So I thought, well, it can't be. And then I didn't have any confidence in Harris. But Trump has just gone rogue. And he doesn't care what anybody else says, and he doesn't listen to anybody else. And so the whole world is actually getting to be very, very against Trump, and this is hurting us. And so even if the situation with Iran works out or things like that, I mean, the bottom line is he's making the world hate the United States. Already he can't get NATO to join in with them against Iran. That's a big problem. That's a big sign that he's losing his grip. And so what I was hoping from Trump is that Trump would be independent, because he's independently financed, that he wouldn't care about AIPAC, which is AIPAC, which is basically the Zionist Union that's financed by the banksters in Europe and you know, Jewish banksters. It's an incredibly strong lobby, and if you want to get anywhere in politics, you have to kowtow to AIPAC. You could win without doing it, but it would be very hard. So it's just best to, excuse me, to kowtow to AIPAC. And of course, Israel knows this. And so Israel can just act with impunity, and they can do whatever they want. And now they currently have a monster, a dictator, maniac dictator like Stalin or something, who's in charge right now, who just acts with impunity and does whatever he wants to do, and nobody can contain him. Certainly not America. And I was hoping that Trump could stand up to him, because Trump keeps saying America first. So how is kowtowing to what Israel wants America first? It's not. It's what Israel wants. So I'm really surprised that he's not standing up to Israel. Now, of course, Harris would not have stood up to Israel either. No way. But I really thought that Trump might, and he's not. And so, and he's, for some reason, he's completely against the whole rest of the world. He's got a foreign wife, a foreign-born wife, and he seems to hate the whole world. And so he's making all immigration and anything he can, any interaction America's having with the rest of the world has just become completely hostile, and it's because of Trump's attitude about it. And then he brings in this guy Vance, and Vance is just a buffoon. I mean, he totally screws up, and he pisses off, and he infuriates any diplomat or any foreign dignitary that he meets. He's got no negotiating skills at all, and he has no idea what he's doing, and he's a complete idiot. Rubio, yeah, maybe he's, you know, not so bad, but the thing is what Trump wants to do is, and I think even he realizes that this isn't going to happen, that this isn't a reasonable possibility, but he wants to run again when he's like 86 years old. It's crazy. But anyway, but if he does that, and if he says, okay, yeah, I can run a third term as long as they're not consecutively, that means that Obama could come back and run. A lot of people haven't really thought about that, but Obama could come back and run. And I think if Trump does that and he runs again, Obama doesn't want to run again. He's done. He's retired. He's just, you know, he has his voice. He's living. He's enjoying his retirement. But if the entire Democratic Party said, please, we need you. You're the only person that we know for sure that could beat Trump. Then I think he would run. And he would win. He would win. Especially if what the Republicans put up is going to be Vance, which is who's an idiot. And I don't think anybody who's on the fence, as far as whether they're left or right, would think that would want to go with Vance. I mean, name one thing that Vance has actually done successfully. Every person he meets, from the pontiff to people in Germany to this latest negotiations in Iran to, I mean, I could just go on and on. Every person that he meets, he gets all hostile with them, and he runs off in a huff, and he's not invited back again, and he's an embarrassment. He can't negotiate anything. I mean, the way that you negotiate is you go there, and you say, okay, what do you need for a ceasefire? And you know that Iran basically wants one, because obviously they're not going to be able to sustain a war against a country like America forever. So they say, well, we want this, this, and this. And so then what you say is you say, well, I'm not sure if I can get all that for you, but I can run it past Mr. Trump, see what he says about it, but let's say for argument's sake that we could get that for you. Would that do it? I mean, would we have a deal then? And if they're like, yeah, if we could have that and that and that, then yeah, then we would have a deal. So you shake on it. And so that's called a pre-close. And if you have that, you don't have a conflicting. I'm fumbling for words right now, but you don't have a hostile relationship now. Everything is calmed down. We're friends. We're trying to negotiate. Everything is fine. I want to say it's a contentious. Yeah, contentious. You don't have a contentious relationship anymore. You've put doused water on the flames, and we're friends, and we're going to get along, and we're going to try to do it. And you want to be like, I'm in your court. I agree. I want to have those are reasonable demands, and then I agree with you, and I want to have a ceasefire, an agreement. Let's do that. And so you go in and you say, okay. So then you come back and you say, okay, well, we can get you this one thing. We can get that for you. Oh, that's great. But these other two things, that was a stumbling block. So, and then you're just down to that now. You're just down to, give and take a little bit on those last two issues to push it across the finish line, and then you have a deal. That's how you negotiate. You have to respect the other people that you're negotiating with. You can't negotiate like what Donald Trump wrote The Art of the Deal, but that's not how he negotiates. He just comes in, he knows he's dealing from a position of strength, and he comes in with a big hammer and he just tries to smash people. And he thinks, I'm the best negotiator, I just smash people. Well, how about being a negotiator when you're not in a position of strength? How well would you do then? And the answer is very badly. So, and Vance is not able to negotiate at all. So, somehow, because of AIPAC, America has become a vassal state of Israel. And Israel now rules the world. And it's not even Jewish people that are in support of what Netanyahu's doing. They're Zionists. And they have full support of all of the banksters, I call them banksters on purpose, in Europe, who mostly are Jewish people, the Rothschilds and people like that. And, they are controlling the world now in a very diabolical way, actually. I mean, how is what they're doing to Palestinians any worse than what Hitler wanted to do to the Jews, or any worse than apartheid? I mean, Netanyahu has even been heard saying, quoting, I won't be done until I've exterminated all Muslims. This is more than 1 billion people that he wants to kill. That's a dangerous guy, especially when he has so much power, and even America kowtows to anything that he wants. Currently, he's agreeing to a ceasefire for a while, but I mean, it's at his whim. I mean, the whole world is at his whim. It's whatever he wants, whatever he feels like he wants to do. I don't feel like having a ceasefire anymore. Boom, and then we won't. I mean, and America, apparently, even with Trump, is not strong enough to stand up to the guy. So this is a big problem. And that could also, eventually, if it doesn't settle down, if you don't replace him somehow, eventually, if you keep stirring the pot in the Middle East, you're going to create a world war eventually. And you've got this BRICS now, this organization called BRICS, that's sort of getting stronger as an antithesis to the US dollar. And the more you stir the pot, and the more Netanyahu makes trouble, you're having more and more countries getting involved, and you're just inspiring the BRICS nations to get stronger and more unified and possibly come up with their own currency. Of course, then they would have to make a tremendous amount of it. But anyway, this is also a potential problem. And then also you've got, I noticed another thing as far as the Civil War goes. So Trump has made a demand that he wants Google to give him any information on any person, any random person who criticizes him. So if on your laptop, on social media, you say anything against Donald Trump, you will be flagged, and that information is going to be sent to the Secret Service, and they're going to be watching you, and they're going to create a file on you as being a potential subversive. So, I mean, so much for freedom of speech. I mean, it doesn't exist anymore. But there's been a lot of challenges to freedom of speech over the last 15 years especially, and ever since basically social media has become a big thing, and ever since the echo chambers have started becoming more and more pronounced, and the two sides have become more and more established, and the people are, you know, more interested in confirmation bias than anything else, our freedom of speech is basically completely eroded, and we no longer really have freedom of speech. What I've noticed is that people don't care. People don't want, or people don't care about having freedom of speech. It's something that we were granted originally in the Constitution, but it's not something that people really care about. They don't want freedom of speech. They don't want other people to have differing opinions. They don't want other people to have any kind of different opinion about anything. They want to go back to the Middle Ages where everybody was forced to think the same thing, or basically what they do in Saudi Arabia. They want to, you know, they want to impose their God and their image of the world and their worldview on everybody and make it a law that you have to agree with that. Okay? And we're back. Okay, so that's the disturbing thing, is that people don't want freedom of speech. And if you don't allow freedom of speech, then you let people get really, really confused about reality. And the more confused they get about reality, the more things like having a war becomes a possibility. So if we're not really working with enough information and enough knowledge to understand reasonable from not reasonable, and you just go completely on one side, or you're just following completely on the other side, and you're just a follower. And you're just a follower, and you're not using critical thinking, and you're not using rationale or logic or whatever, that's when things like having a civil war becomes more likely, because people are not, there's no voice of reason. And so, unfortunately, that's the direction that I see everything headed in. That's not real positive, I know, but that's the direction I see it headed in. Economically, it's hard to say. I think AI is obviously going to be a thing, and so I think investing in AI or whatever is solid. It's the same as investing in the internet, and so everybody wants to compare what's happening now to the dot-com crash. Well, the dot-com crash, I mean, was investing in the internet. And I think dot-com companies are kind of a good idea. I mean, they kind of came back, didn't they? I mean, they didn't just come back, they came roaring back. I mean, the internet became a big thing. But, you know, when it first was introduced, people were pushing back against it. And that's the same kind of thing that's happening with AI. And yeah, a lot of that's in a lot of ways, AI is going to be bad, because AI basically wants to just have everybody be the same, and we'll do the thinking for you. You don't need to think. And AI will never replace very intelligent people who are good, creative, and critical thinkers. But it will replace a lot of other things. And the good side is that it will eliminate a lot of stupid mistakes that people make. And even really intelligent people make stupid mistakes sometimes. I make stupid mistakes sometimes. Everybody makes stupid mistakes sometimes. And so AI would eliminate a lot of that. So that would be a plus. But you're going to force everybody to kind of have the same mentality, which is less freedom of speech even, you know. And so that's ultimately, you know, critical thinking and creative thinking is on the decline significantly. And you can see it with Gen Z. They are not good critical thinkers. I'm sorry to say, but it's true. And so it's just we're not going in a good direction. And the more we go down the path of not having good critical thinkers, the more likely it becomes that you have this explosion between the two sides. So that's what I think that could happen eventually. And it's not good, but you know, what can you do about it? Anyway, so sorry to end on a sour note there, but that's why this episode is called Civil War. All right, so that's all for this week, or this time. My name is Scott Powers Houston. This is Learning with Power. This was episode 37. Please like, share, subscribe, all those wonderful things, and we'll see you next time. Take care.